KCBS, in partnership with UCSF Health, presents As Prescribed, a weekly conversation with leading medical experts from UCSF Medical Center and UCSF Benioff Children's Hospitals.
Hello and welcome to As Prescribed. I'm Kathy Novak. Kids all around the Bay Area are getting back to school, and for some of them, it's the first time they've seen the inside of a classroom in more than a year. So how can families and teachers help with that transition? We have Dr. Petra Steinbuchel with us today. She is professor of psychiatry and director of the UCSF Benioff Children's Hospital's Child and Adolescent Psychiatry Portal. Dr. Steinbuchel, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you. It's really good to be here.
So, Doctor, when we were talking about the risks and benefits of in-person learning, we heard a lot about the effect that remote learning was having on some kids. And now all kids are pretty much going back into the classrooms, apart from some who have some exemptions. So what do teachers and families need to be aware of?
This is certainly a moment that we've been waiting for some time, and we know that schools provide a lot, not just in terms of academic stimulation, but also social and emotional learning and opportunities, and for many kids also just nutrition, lunch, and often breakfast, and a sense of safety and security, as well as being able to get outside in a safe space. And so now we're going back. And for many, this is a really welcome transition. And for some kids, it is presenting a lot of anxiety. And this is really understandable because we've all been spending a lot of time together and often just clustered with our families. And so now kids may be having a little bit more separation anxiety, especially younger children and those who are maybe more vulnerable to anxiety. And so I think, as with anything new, we can't just kind of throw ourselves into it without any kind of support or scaffolding. We need to have a lot of good communication about what to expect and to really try and reestablish routines that may have kind of gone by the wayside a little bit more during our time at home. And so that includes having really clear schedules, talking about what to expect the next day, and being able to have that structure and routine and consistency as much as possible.
And on the school side, there are a lot of different districts around the state. Are there some that are doing it better than others?
My understanding is that there's some unevenness in how schools are preparing teachers in particular around this. I've heard some schools who have had really, just a lot of education around mental health literacy and knowing what to expect, as well as just more generally, that we can't necessarily expect to catch up completely in terms of some of the academic learning that may not have happened last year, but rather really focusing on kind of a stepwise scaffolded approach to getting kids back in and getting them reoriented. And then some schools that are still trying to figure out some of the practicalities of, desk spacing and how are we going to do lunches and how are we going to work out eating outside and things like that. And it's a real challenge. I mean, I have tremendous empathy for teachers, for school administrators, for parents. This has been hard across the board. And, schools have varying levels of resources, and just we need to acknowledge that everyone is doing the best that they can, but that having greater kind of communication and to some degree education around what to expect can be really helpful.
That really is a lot to juggle sort of logistically and with the administration. So it's a good reminder for parents, teachers, and the kids themselves that maybe the academics just won't be what they otherwise would have been in normal circumstances, right?
Right. And that some kids have done really well with distance learning and have actually in some ways done better because they haven't had the classroom distractions or the social anxiety that they usually do. That said, a lot of kids have expressed a lot of, concern about Zoom fatigue and attentional challenges. And, I think we can all attest to how hard it is to pay attention to the screen for hours on end. And so I think we just need to know what works for different kids and figure out where everyone is at the start of the year.
Yeah, everyone has absolutely experienced that. So, before we were all on Zoom all the time, screen time was almost like a dirty word when it came to kids. And now, as you say, they've spent more than a year on computers, on iPads. So now where's the balance? Is it going back to making sure that they're off the devices? And how do we do that?
I think, there are a lot of controversies around screen time, and the American Academy of Pediatrics used to recommend a limit of no more than 2 hours a day, but has revised that more recently to look at, what is really working for your child, and also what is the overall balance, meaning, are you getting enough sleep? Are you getting enough nutritious food? Are you getting outside and or moving your body in some way? And are you able to get all of your work done that you need to? And are you socializing with friends? And I think we need to hold that in mind, that that video games can play a role in connecting kids with other kids. And especially if they are quarantining at home, then this may be a way to connect. And so to find out a routine that actually is going to fit in with your schedule and your family's lifestyle and also your family values, and recognize that it has its pros and cons, and that we need to think about, a scaffolded approach to kind of tapering off if that is what your school schedule and other schedules demand.
And, being aware of the potential for anxiety that we're talking about, be it because kids are going back to school or even because they're worried about being exposed to COVID, they absorb all the news they've heard about this. What's your advice to parents who want to check in with their kids and see how they're doing?
Yeah, it's a great question, and one that we get asked fairly frequently. And kids, parents tend to worry about things that are kind of more global in the news. There's a lot of uncertainty right now. Kids tend to worry about what is immediately in front of them and what they see and hear and feel. And so recognizing that they are picking up on the anxiety of others, and it is different at different ages. So younger kids may need just really clear, concrete questions. How are things going? And also checking in about, what did you find that was joyful today? What did you have any gratitude for? What do you feel proud of? And is there anything that you feel worried about? And then older kids may benefit from some less direct questions, but really finding, more casual times to check in. This could be while cooking dinner or working on another shared project together, or just driving somewhere together, and just making space. How was today? Was there anything that you felt that was, worrisome in any way? And just trying to open the door without forcing the question and forcing the conversation.
That's great advice, Dr. Steinbuchel. Thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
Dr. Petra Steinbuchel is professor of psychiatry and director of the UCSF Benioff Children's Hospital's Child and Adolescent Psychiatry Portal. And I'm Kathy Novak. Thanks so much for tuning in to As Prescribed.
As Prescribed, every Thursday at 1:30, right here on the Bay Area's news station, All News 106.9 and AM 740 KCBS, and streaming on the Odyssey app. The proceeding was sponsored by UCSF.